Good morning,
Hello.
LinkedIn family. It's a thoughtful Tuesday today, and I am very, very happy to have a new connection of mine. Although one would think it was an older connection because I've been following Jeeva for some while. Jeeva and his wife, actually, his better half, Jeeva Sam. And Jeeva, I hope I said your name right, right?
Yes, absolutely.
uh, Jiva is that one connection that can really change your life. He and his wife are marriage counselors and relationships counselors, and so you need to connect and follow. You need to connect with them. You need to follow them, and you definitely need to engage them because he truly is that one connection that can change a life. Jiva, thank you so much for being on Coffee with Bob. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate the invite and the opportunity to share with your audience today.
You're very welcome. I think what you do is extremely important. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys have going on?
All right, okay. So my wife, Slojna, who's beside me in spirit right now, not in person, she's still working full time. I am retired from 35 years of congregational ministry as a pastor and home, so it's a lot easier for me to do the daytime interviews. Well, Slojna and I have been married for over 37 years.
Wow,
Um,
congratulations.
uh, Thank you. Ours was an interesting marriage. Ours is an arranged marriage because we're both from the Indian culture, and so our parents basically, brought us together. We didn't really have much of a courtship. Our courtship was about 15 minutes long, where we had one deep conversation with each other. I was explaining to her the realities of life in Canada because she was living in India at the time, and what she should expect, and just a little bit of a small talk really is all we did. But our culture as well as our faith, I think the two of them are the combination that made that to be not that difficult a step to take. Quite often I tell people here about the arranged marriage, and it's like, no, 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 no. There's no way I can see myself making a commitment for life after one little conversation
Right.
or little introduction by my parents. But that's all we knew, and so that's how we were raised. That's how we saw everyone in the family get married and having great marriages. And so we basically, go into a marriage in the Indian culture with a very, very firm belief that this is for life and we're going to make it work somehow. One way or the other, we're going to make this work. And so you never ever go into with the thought of saying, well, if this doesn't work out, we'll get a divorce. That's not the way we thought. Now, today, unfortunately, in India, that thought process is gaining more traction, mainly because of Western television being introduced about 25 years ago. However, we were raised in that, and of course, it doesn't matter whether your marriage is arranged by God, your parents, your best friend, you got set up, no matter what it is, you're the two that are going to make the marriage work.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
that simple as that, right? Like we love to say that, in marriage, you say, I do once, and you say, I will stick it out a million times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really up to us. So we encountered like virtually every marriage issue that any other couple, would encounter. I mean, there were some that were unique to our situation, especially in the early going. And that was simply because we didn't know each other.
Right.
So really the first few years of marriage, we were really getting to know each other. Of course, it got complicated a little bit because our first baby came along about 10 months after Sloan came to Canada, pretty well right on the dot. And so there was a lot of learning going on, a lot of adjustment, flexibility, and still I was a pastor, and so anybody who's a pastor or knows about pastors knows that a lot of times ministry, is something that puts your life totally out of balance.
Hmm.
Like it's very common for pastors' wives, where the pastor was a man, to say, "My husband is married to the church." That's how I feel, and so I fell into that trap. So I was putting a lot of time, into taking care of the congregation at the time, and so eventually, things have to come to a head, and it's like, hey, like you have to make some time for me, for the children. And so we've had some of those conversations, along the way. And of course, in the course of pastoral ministry, you do run into couples, who are also going through difficulties in their marriage. And so I actually am not a trained counselor. I took some training, in marriage counseling or pastoral counseling as a rule in seminary. But a lot of stuff I just learned as I went along. and used a lot of things that Sloan and I were using in our marriage. And of course, we were reading books, we were going to seminars and picking up some nuggets, that we applied to ourselves and taught them to others. And then, I started mentoring, mostly men actually, who were in business. Many of them, were successful already, but wanted to kind of go to higher levels. So I'm really providing them with spiritual mentorship from a very strong biblical perspective. And I noticed that at a certain stage, they're all hitting this wall, even though they're applying all the principles, they're practicing the daily disciplines. And all of a sudden, I got this flash. And the flash was that there was something not right about their marriages. And so when I checked that with them, every one of them had some stress in their marriage that they had not fully addressed. And so your relationship stress can actually hold you back from success, in your business, in your career, in your profession. That's just a given. And we just see that happening so often. So at that point, I kind of got thrust into doing what we're doing right now. Suloja had actually had a sense that we should be doing this even about maybe 10 years before we actually launched into it. Or maybe not 10 years, maybe about 6 years before because we were on a television program in Canada, being one of the 3 couples that were working through something called the 40-day love dare, which came out of a movie called Fireproof, that was a big hit, back in the early 2000s, I would say. And but I kept pushing her off because I said, Slojana, we don't want to get into working with couples because I know what it's like to work with distressed couples. They'll suck the life out of you.
Yeah.
But finally, when it came to these guys that I'd come to know, as friends, as brothers, so to speak, I couldn't say no. So at that point, we basically launched our marriage mentorship, and that's what we call it, is a mentorship, because our philosophy is that if you are really desperate for a breakthrough in your marriage and you're willing to do whatever it takes to avoid a divorce, for some people that may be a purely financial reason. For most people, it's not just financial, it's also all the emotional costs of divorce, the way it impacts your family, your children. It sets up this adversarial relationship that is very, very tough to, then eventually, reconcile. And so whatever your motivation is, or it might be a faith-based motivation, like some of the faiths are very strict about no divorce at all. Whatever it is, but you come to us in that state of desperation, and you're willing to do whatever it takes, whatever we teach you, then we work with you very closely. We give you 24/7 access to us for a 10 to 12 week period, because we found that in that 10 to 12 week period, when you do everything, there's a cumulative effect that kicks in. And along with some of the unique things that we bring to the whole process, every couple that has done that has received the breakthrough.
Awesome. That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, what I love about what you guys do, you're on all the different platforms and you do lives on Facebook where people and LinkedIn where they can ask you any questions, which is wonderful. So again, if you're not following Jeeva and his wife, if you're not connected with them, please do, because they give out gold nuggets all the time. And I just love their advice. Coming from someone who's been with a spouse for 33 years now, and if I include the dating time, Jeeva, it's been almost 40. Their advice, even their free advice, has been invaluable. Jeeva, thank you so much for being on Coffee with Bob. I really appreciate it. I want to do a live with you and your wife. So don't go away after we sign off here. I want to talk to you about that a little bit. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Bob, for the
opportunity. Thank you. You are that one connection that can change many lives. Thank you very much. And thank you for being on Coffee with Bob.